extraordinary resources, such as Mount Adams. And
Yes.
it's, and Mount Adams is adjacent to the Yakima Indian Reservation, which has a long history of weird things happening in that area.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not like, and I've been to the East Seti Ranch, which is a place where you can go, Trout Lake, Washington. It's on the south side of Mount Adams. And you can do sky watching there. And I have to say that when my sister and I went down a couple of years ago and sat out in our lawn chairs in the, in the viewing area, with our laser pointers. Then again, you can't shine a laser pointer on any kind of conventional aircraft, or you've got the authorities, sending you off to prison.
Yeah.
And so, there might be 4 or 5 of these like star-like objects that are gliding across the sky, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This place really is extraordinary. And you'd pick out one of the 4 or 5 that's basically just gliding across the sky, train your light laser pointer on it, and it would go into, and just that one would go into a power-up. Suddenly it'd go from starlight to like a basketball size, glow, and then go back to the original size, and then continue on its course. But we saw a number of them that seemed to be sort of like approaching Mount Adams. It's like they never quite approached it, but then would kind of disappear. And I don't think that whatever these objects are, I don't think they need doors to go in and out. If they're clearly passing through one way or another. But Mount Adams is truly an extraordinary place, and I could not even begin to explain what I experienced there.
Well, exactly, Maureen. And, while the UFOI team was there, last month, we saw one of those major power-ups go by. And during the period of time that this thing powered up, probably 4 times, like you said, about the size of a basketball up in the sky, and it was, by the way, it was below the cloud level that night of about 2,000-foot clouds. So it gives you an idea how close the thing was. It was unmistakable, very bright. But at 3 different times during those power-ups, we got giant flashes out of the thing that came right at us. And we actually recorded that on videotape. So we're going to be, that will be part of this Ambition Pictures documentary that we were a part of down there. They were filming all the anomalous activity that was going on down there. The Wade brothers, Timothy and Philip Wade, are producing a documentary about all that stuff. Not only UFOs, but Bigfoot activity down there as well.
They get everything down there. I mean, it attracts everything.
Yeah. Well, listen, Maureen, I am now, what I'm going to do is that, you know that I just got back from the Caribou Paracon up in the middle of BC, Canada, where I was actually snowed in and couldn't get back for 2 days with Dave Scott, the radio show host up there, and Grant Cameron, your old buddy. And I'll tell you what, Grant and I had just the most awesome time up there. And I was able to spend a whole lot of quality time with this famous ufologist. And matter of fact, maybe I'll let you say a few words about Grant before I let you go. And what I'm going to do is play some clips that I got when Grant and I were trapped in a snowstorm on the highway. This is Highway 97 heading south from 108 Mile House, which is a town up there. They call their actual towns ended up or started out as these little houses along the Gold Rush route to Alaska, and we were staying at 108 Mile House, which is a town, for this Caribou Paracon. And I'm trying to get Grant Cameron to the airport in a blinding snowstorm. And all of a sudden we come down the highway and there's this multiple semi-trucks across the road. No one can go either way, north or south. And they actually had to medevac some of the people out there by helicopter because of these wrecks that were happening in front of us. So while we were in the car, stuck there in this snowstorm, I recorded a few things that I'm going to play just for the audience so they can hear about it. But what's your impression of the famous Canadian ufologist, Grant Cameron?
Oh, I hold him in the highest esteem. And I heard him, and you normally go down to McMinnville. So the McMinnville, Oregon UFO Fest it's world class. And they bring in the A-list, the ufology A-listers every year.
Yes.
And God, maybe it was 3 years ago that they had Grant Cameron there, and nobody had heard of him. I mean, it's amazing how in the last 3 years he went from complete obscurity to being, everybody knows Grant Cameron now.
Yeah.
But he was what you'd have to call a sleeper. I think a lot of people left to go have lunch instead of listening to this, whoever he was. All of us who stayed there to listen to it was like, oh my God, where did he come from? His breadth of knowledge, in all aspects of ufology is breathtaking. He's and he also has, he's frequently an interview guest on many interview programs, but also he has his own interview program, and he makes some extremely insightful commentary on, it doesn't matter what it is. If Grant Cameron says something about it, you can generally believe it's got good basis. I hold him in the highest esteem.
And gosh, I was lucky enough, Maureen, to appear on his radio show that we had to do at Dave Scott's spaced out radio broadcast station in his studio there, because he was stuck up in Canada and couldn't get home and do his show. So both Dave Scott and I got to appear on Grant's radio show. That was a fascinating experience. But and Grant has been doing this ufology thing for over 40 years, and now he's just becoming worldwide famous for all of his contacts with Tom DeLonge and Jim Semivan.
He went from almost complete obscurity, like three years or so ago, to being right up there with Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Dolan, and the best of the best. So I'm really pleased to see that he's being recognized for the research, for the kind of research he's doing. So yes, I'm very, very high on Grant.
Well, wonderful. By the way, next time I see him, I will make sure that he gets in touch with you, with some of the things that you're doing here. I think these historical sightings in Washington State is something that would really open his eyes as well.
Well, one of these days I'll have it all together and you have another program. Once I actually have a chance to open the door rather than simply peeking through the corner. So this was stuff that just sort of came tumbling out of the internet just within the last week or so, and it's just at the very beginning. I have a feeling some really interesting stuff is going to come forth, and I have this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Wonderful. Well, I will definitely do that when you get your little presentation together with all these details. That'll be great to have you back on. So, Maureen Morgan from Washington State, MUFON, we are so glad to have you here in our neck of the woods, and thank you for all the time that you spent with me tonight. It's been a long day for you. You got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get down to the southern part of the state, and now you're back home, so you can rest now.
Yeah, well, I took your suggestion, made myself a cup of extra strong chamomile tea. So as soon as I put the phone down, I'll probably go to bed.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Maureen, thank you again. You take care of yourself and say hi
Thank you very much.
Say hi to all my friends out there at the Olympic meetup group, and I'm sure I'll see them soon here. Hopefully, one of your meetings coming up.
You got it. Well, thank you for having me on. It's always an honor, and I look forward to having our paths cross soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well,
right.
I will listen to the rest of the program at a later point.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I am going to check out.
Oh, it'll be archived. You can watch it anytime you want. I think you'll find these interviews with Grant Cameron fascinating, too, though.
Well, I'm sure I will. And again, thank you for including me tonight. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Maureen.
Okay. Well, good night to you. Good night to the listening audience, but wherever you may be.
That's right. They are out there. So thank you again. All right. Well, that was a great interview. Maureen Morgan from the Washington State MUFON organization. She is the state director for Washington State, and she is talking to us about these historical UFO sighting reports in the state of Washington. My gosh, they go all the way back to 1945 and even before that, with these multiple, not just a few, but she was talking about 80, some kind of figure of 80 reports in the state of Washington before Kenneth Arnold's report over Mount Rainier and before the Maury Island incident, which happened just the week before the Kenneth Arnold sighting down in South Puget Sound. Well, so what I thought I would do now, folks, since I can't drag Grant Cameron in on any show that I just do here right off the top of my head, I thought I would play a little bit of a clip that I call carpool karaoke with two ufologists, myself and Grant Cameron, because we were stuck literally in a snowstorm up at in the middle of BC, Canada, this past weekend, October 1st through like the 2nd, and then the Friday before that, because we were up there for the Caribou Paracon. It was the first annual paranormal conference up in BC that the Canadian Society of Questers put on, along with Dave Scott and Spaced Out Radio. Dave Scott is a very popular late-night talk show, radio show host that talks about the paranormal and UFOs and cryptids and Bigfoot. And he teamed up with the Canadian Society of Questers, which is one of the oldest paranormal organizations up in Canada, and put on this wonderful conference. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go there and be part of it from the UFO I-Team to put on a Skywatch on Saturday night, along with the conference there. And that was before the snow hit. So when we were sitting around Saturday night looking at the beautiful Milky Way and all the stars so bright because there's no light pollution up there at the Spruce Hill Resort, big old ski area resort with chalets, beautiful log cabin lodge, just a gorgeous location. We were actually treated to some very interesting flashes in the night sky that Saturday night, where Grant Cameron and Dave Scott and Trish Lee from the UFO I-Team, Carol Williams, myself, along with about 30 other people skywatching that night, were looking up in the northern part of the night sky, when all of a sudden, out of the nowhere, we just got these large flashes of light where no stars were, by the way. It wasn't as if a star was twinkling or, bursting as a flare-up itself. It was nowhere to be seen, and these flashes appeared. And then the flashes would appear multiple times in the same location, which basically kind of leads to the fact that it wasn't orbiting space junk or a satellite iridium flare that was going by. These were in the same locations, probably a minute or so apart, 3 separate flashes of brilliant white light up in the heavens. But that was Saturday night. Then, of course, Saturday night, it started to snow. We wake up Sunday morning, it is just covered with snow. And of course, I was tasked that time to take Grant Cameron to the airport so he could fly out to get to Calgary and then Winnipeg, where he lives. And my gosh, did we get snowed in. Grant Cameron and I are about an hour down the road going south on Highway 97, trying to get to the Kamloops airport, when all of a sudden this snowstorm blizzard hits, and literally it's hard to see the road, hard to see